Okay, I'm reconvening yesterday's meeting, and the point where it was I was completing questions. Are there any further questions? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Yes, I believe we stopped just before I was asking my question, follow-up question. Yesterday we got to know that the complaint is continuing to be lodged with the DIA. I'd like to know if the DIA has been approached to find out what would happen with the complaint lodged with them.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have informed the relationship manager at the DIA of the possibility, if council approved, of a complaint coming their way, and acknowledging that they don't have jurisdiction over any election matter.
Okay, Councillor.
Is the complaint intended to be sent to any other entity?
I'm considering that, but I don't think so. I think we've specifically identified the DIA. Councillor Paniora, you have a question?
Yes, good morning through the chair. So I guess it's a tandem question between CE Maris and our legal advisor. Is he present again this morning?
Yes, he is, Councillor Paniora. He'll just come up to the front now.
Thank you.
He's now sitting in his seat. You can't see him, but good to go, Councillor Paniora.
Thank you. So, Jason, you advised that the advice that you received from Simpson Grayson was that there was the meeting was able to go ahead as an emergency meeting. You also told the media that it was legally, it's being legally requisitioned. However, we heard inconsistent advice with that yesterday from him regarding the not meeting the emergency provisions. So the question that I have is, why is the meeting still going ahead if it's clear that it doesn't meet the provisions under the Act?
I'll start with the answer there, Councillor Paniora, and then we'll get over to our legal advisor. So just to be clear, I have not spoken to any media at this stage at all. The other point is legally the requisition was sound, and the advice I received is that the meeting must proceed because the requisition was legally compliant with all statutes. Now, I know Warren Bangma, our legal representative from Simpson and Grayson, talked to this point yesterday. So I'll ask Warren to repeat that.
So just the last part of my question, why is it still going ahead if it doesn't meet the emergency requirements?
Thank you, Councillor. Well, look, the meeting has been called by His Worship, the Mayor, as Chief Executive Maris has indicated. The notice of requisition is valid. As per my answer to questions yesterday, there is a prerequisite in the legislation to exercising emergency powers to call an emergency meeting. Look, that is, there must be an emergency, and it must be a matter of business which must be dealt with earlier than the time requirement for calling an extraordinary meeting, which is 3 working days.
So given what we heard from the election officer and what we heard from you, and now what we're hearing this morning that DIA are not the appropriate channel, then what I'm hearing, is it correct that I'm hearing that it doesn't meet an emergency because it's not life or death or a civil emergency or what have you, but on top of that, there's no business that can be conducted through the notice of motion proposed today because DIA is not the appropriate channel. Is that what I'm hearing? Both test prerequisites have not been met?
To answer the first part of your question, I think Council's decision-making could be open to challenge on the basis that there is not an emergency in the sense of a matter which needs to be dealt with today and cannot wait. More broadly, in terms of what response DIA takes, I haven't had any direct discussions with DIA. That would be for them to decide how they wish to respond to any complaint made on behalf of the council in due course.
Okay,
I have a question.
councillor Nair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, my question is kind of similar because I did in one of the elections in the past approach the lawyers about these two options. The judicial review is a very expensive option, and that is the only suggested option. DIA is something which has come out of sky for me. So why at all we are considering this option, going to DIA? It's none of the, it's not within the purview of the election protocol. Where do you, because Dale Oflosky, he's not there today.
Yes.
He mentioned there are two options. He didn't mention DIA.
Councillor Nair, just bear with me for a second. I'll call in Dale to see if we understand the costs of both those judicial options. That's the recount and the inquiry. So I'll call in Dale in a second as well. The question you're asking about why it's going to DIA, it's because that's what the mayor has put in his paperwork and that's what he would like the council to agree to. So that's part of the debate that you're going to have at some point. So
Well, that's what I'd like to know from Dale.
Dale won't bear with me. So I'll just call in our electoral officer. Dale, are you aware of the costs for a recount or a judicial inquiry at all, please?
Sorry, that's not my question, Mr. Morris. The cost is not at this stage. My question is, how come a third option of DIA is there? If Dale can answer that.
Dale can't answer that.
He has to answer. He's electoral office.
He didn't suggest it, Ash, the mayor, it's come from the.
No, I know, but if mayor is suggesting hang yourself, will we hang ourselves? So let me ask the person who is appropriate to answer this question, which is Dale Oflosky, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Dale can't answer that question. The
Yeah, I'm
secretary-
sorry, we won't go there.
So I would, my next question, obviously.
No, you're not going to have a next question, I'm sorry.
Why not?
You've had plenty of questions during.
No, I might.
Everything. No, I'm sorry. Look,
But that's not the process. Thank you.
I just want to come in here too. So I've had concerns about the manner in which the local election was conducted, and I've brought this to I've had many issues brought to my attention. And I share those concerns. Free and fair elections are a vital part of our democracy. The irregularities that I am aware of are serious and if proven undermine that democratic process. As mayor, it is my responsibility to bring those concerns to the attention of the full council and gain direction from them as to how they wish to proceed. That is why I called the meeting. It may not get a council approval that we go to the DIA, but I am going to run the meeting. It is a legal meeting and it is a valid meeting. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question and directed at the KDC. We have the normal group who preach democracy, but when it suits in here, we have nefarious negatives also in the room doing the same. At a time when, in fact, true democracy through an untainted and transparent electoral system.
So isn't this question fine?
Excuse me, you're not the chair.
I'm the chair.
Question of the-
You can make, you're making a statement. If you got a factual statement, I'm fine with that too.
It's coming.
Carry on, Councillor Howard.
When an untainted and transparent electoral system is being legitimately challenged, why has the KDC not taken the matters that have been raised?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, this is a statement, not a question.
I'm chairing this meeting, please desist. I
Very well.
already said that if Councillor Howard is making this as a statement, I'm happy with that. I am the chair.
This is the question. It starts, why has the KDC not taken the matters raised with their officers really seriously, right on the right foot, and got committed about responses and real action to assure all of the public that justice has been done and that we are not just needing a few more chinks in the armour of the electoral democracy, dent the efficacy of the system for the longer term.
Okay, that might be a question for Dale Oflosky. Is he online?
He will be online in a second, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start out with a response though. I think it's appropriate. Councillor Howard, you're asking about the legitimately challenged by KDC. You will see in your papers that you would have read that there have been issues raised, small issues, I will say, And I have addressed those issues, and they are in your papers, and my responses are in your papers. So they have been legitimately addressed. Bear with me, I'm answering your question. So they have been legitimately addressed, and you will see that in the paper. We have also received a complaint that was sent through to Dale Opsosky, who has sent that to the police, and that has been addressed as well. So I am very confident that Kaipara District Council staff and electoral officer have addressed all the issues that have been raised and provided responses to them, and you'll see them in your papers.
Kia ora.
I'll also say, before I hand over to Dale, that I do believe that there is proper processes being followed with this legislation. We are legislatively compliant with everything we have done in this election, and I will stand up at all times to that. And I am very confident that we have run a robust process with this election. Now, I'm going to hand over to the electoral officer. It's fair that he has a say in this matter and answer your question as well. Dale? This was your moment, Dale.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great, thank you. Just by way of comment, I'm more than comfortable with the way this election has been conducted. I've been running elections now for 40 years. There's no difference to this election than the previous few elections that I've been running. I believe the processes are robust. I believe that all legislation has been complied with, including any complaints that have been forwarded to me where an offence has been alleged. They have been passed on to the police. That is the proper process under our legislation for the police, for them to deal with, to investigate and prosecute if necessary. What I said yesterday is the two legal processes going forward if candidates wish to do so, and that is to go on to apply for a judicial recount and a judicial inquiry. Both those instances are dependent on the district court and whether they agree to proceed with those or not. But just in a nutshell, as I stated earlier, more than comfortable with the way things have been proceeding. There has been no difference in our processes to what has occurred in previous elections. Kia ora.
Peter Larson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so I have a question about the role of the Department of Internal Affairs in elections, because we've heard in our advice this morning already that it is not a matter for the Department of Internal Affairs because they're not involved. Now, if you go to the Department of Internal Affairs website, it sets out the department's role in local elections. And it states the Department of Internal Affairs has a number of particular roles in local authority elections. In summary, the department, it's pretty interesting, administers the relevant legislation. It approves voting document formats, that supports local authorities by supplying an independently certified vote counting computer program for STV elections. It participates in the analysis of election results and recommends improvements where appropriate. And in conjunction with other bodies, provides information and responds to queries relating to the local election. So we have heard this morning from our Chief Executive, our legal counsel, and the appointed electoral officer, something to do with the DIA. That seems to be completely at odds with what the DIA say their role is on their own website. So where do we go with that? Maris?
So I'm going to hand over to Dale to clarify the role of DIA, if you can, Dale, first.
Yes, certainly what has been read out is correct, the role of the Department of Internal Affairs, but their primary role is to oversee the legislation. We meet with DIA on a regular basis. I'm part of a national group. and we discuss what improvements need to be made through the legislative process, and then we work through any legislative changes, and there are legislative changes every so often in that legislation. So they are the correct body for that. Yes, they do provide the formats for the voting documents. They do provide the statistics that goes on the website. So all of that is actually correct. But the ultimate decider, if you like, in local elections is actually the Justice Department or through the court system. So that's the ultimate decider through any litigation is through the recount or the inquiry provisions, which comes through the district court.
Councillor Larson?
So we've been told that the only remedies in an election are to seek a recount or to go through a judicial review process after an election. Is there no mechanism, and does the Department of Internal Affairs have no ability to pause the announcement of the final election result? Sorry, you might not have heard the question, but here we go. Do you want the question repeated?
Dale, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. My understanding is the DIA, as we've stated, do not have any role in the mechanics or the running of a local election. They are the overseer, they're the maintainer of the legislation, but they do not have any they cannot direct me to do anything. That is the role of a court in the latter processes that I've outlined.
So just to be clear then, the DIA has no ability to intervene in any local body election process prior to the announcement of a result?
That is correct. That's my understanding, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions to Dale. So who do you vest the power to undertake council's task of operating and running the election?
So the electoral officer is appointed by the council under Section 12, I think it is, of the Local Electoral Act. I am accountable, as I said earlier, ultimately to the court system. I must follow legislation. That's part of my role, and I have done so. DIA do not have any input into that or involvement. They cannot direct me. Only the court can direct me through those two processes.
So who did you appoint as the electoral officer for KDC?
The council, the mayor and councillors appointed me as the electoral officer a number of years ago.
No, I'm asking you, who did you appoint as the person to run the council's responsibilities?
My deputy electoral officer is Alana. Is that what you're meaning?
That's the question I'm asking.
Yes, it's Alana is my deputy. I must have a deputy under legislation.
So what are her responsibilities as in that role as compared to the CE's role?
Well, my deputy is there. Just what a normal deputy does is to take over should something happen to me. It's a legal requirement. I've done that. And she then can run the election in my absence should it arise. Between us, we then appoint a number of electoral officials to help in the electoral process, which is we have also done.
So the question for Alana would be, Alana, who appoints the election officials that you see, for example, that go out and do the mobile voting?
So that's not a question for Alana. That is a question for Dale Osowski.
I don't. Okay. Dale, can you answer the question?
Yes, I can't be everywhere, obviously. So we need the support of electoral officials to assist in the electoral process on the ground. I rely on council staff to be appointed as my electoral officials to undertake that on the ground process because I can't do it.
Okay. So that's one of my concerns, is the appointment of people who have serious conflicts in the running of this operation. So that's one of the reasons I'm here today. Okay.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important to point out the CE's role in this as well, because that's what you're alluding to. Every electoral official, so let me start. We've got a small council with a small number of staff. And so we ask for volunteers to work on the election and to make sure that we run a safe, solid, robust election process. We did that. We have a number of volunteers who have been working on the election, including on the mobile voting scheme, which we ran this time. They are all declared election officials as required in legislation, and they sign a statutory declaration in front of the Justice of the Peace. The electoral officer has confirmed to you that all electoral officials signed that statutory declaration and he's happy with those officials. Now, there is a crossover in some ways with the chief executive role, and the chief executive role has statutory responsibilities to lift and increase participation in the engagement in the election. That's virtually a quote from the Act. So it's my job to then direct the staff in liaison with our electoral officer and our deputy electoral officer to do that. Mobile voting is one of those mechanisms that we've done this election to enable that to occur. There's nothing wrong with mobile voting. There's nothing wrong with the process. I'm very happy with the results, and I'm very happy with the process that we ran to ensure that was a robust election process.
Okay, I'm not going to take any further questions.
I might just have one question of Dale,
I'm sorry, I'm
please.
not taking any
Sorry.
further questions. I've made a decision not to.
Well,
Oh, okay.
you are asking, I have a clarification.
All right, okay, let's have them then. Councillor Naya, Councillor Painaroa, and Councillor Larson, and Councillor Vincent. Followed by Councillor Aaron Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for making it so simple for us. My question is actually a corollary to your questions, so you should be grateful to me for that, is that I also lodged lots of complaints on the handling of ballot boxes to the Mr. Oflosky and CE Morris. I was told that there is one officer, which is Alana, who is under oath. My question to you is Mr. Morris is under oath as well? Because he's the CEO and he rules the rooster. Thank you.
I will answer that because you're asking me about me.
No, I'm asking Mr.
You're asking the electoral officer about me.
You are not.
Okay, right. I'm going to allow CE Maris to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am a declared election official, yes. And I've signed my statutory declaration. Councillor Nay, you're incorrect when you said that there's only one person that has signed a declaration. We have a number of staff who have signed declarations, and those staff worked on the election. Yeah.
Well,
Question answered.
no, it's not answered properly because Mr. Oflosky wrote to me, which I have it in here, I can read it out, is that electoral officer is the officer who has signed the under oath solemnly or whatever it is. Have you signed that declaration?
I just told you, I have signed a statutory declaration.
I think the question's been answered.
Thank you.
Councillor Painaroa.
Thank you through the chair. I'm just trying to understand the intention here and to try and understand the formulation of the motion that we're looking at in the publicly excluded section. So am I right? I'm understanding that the purpose of the complaint to DIA is to potentially stop the, it sounds like to see if there's any way to stop the declaration of the results being declared. So I suppose that's a question for you, Dale, is if we file this complaint on behalf of Kaipara District Council to the DIA, knowing that the DIA has no legal avenues for us, someone would have to go to the court. Is that not an act of electoral interference by the council? Thank you.
My role as electoral officer is to complete the election. Part of that process is to declare the results this afternoon. That will be proceeding. There will be nothing to prevent that. In fact, not to do so would be breaking the law. So I will be proceeding and announcing and declaring the results, and it's over to individual candidates whether they want to pursue the two avenues that I've outlined, a recount or an inquiry.
No, so would the motion today be an act of electoral interference? by the council if we were to try to file a complaint to the DIA to interfere with that? Does that constitute election interference by Kaipara District Council? Thank you.
I'd have to seek legal advice on that one, and maybe Simpson Gress can help me in that.
Simpson Grierson, do you have any advice on that?
No, I don't have any response on that now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Larson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, just a couple of questions to follow up on these issues. With regard to the appointed election officials from the council staff, Dale, were any of the appointed election officials family members of any of the candidates standing for election?
I believe not, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't interview each electoral official. I rely on my deputy to do that. And I might say that this process is repeated right across the country. Every council in New Zealand follows this process of appointing electoral officials from council staff to undertake on the ground processes when running an election.
That's so it's why it's so important.
Thank you, Dale, but that doesn't mean that it can't be scrutinised, does it?
I have full confidence in the appointment process of my electoral officials that they are independent.
Okay, thank you, Dale. So you've deferred to your deputy, so I'll ask my next question of your deputy, which is Ms. Thurston. Alana, Dale has told us that he didn't interview the candidates to be the appointed election officials, and that was done by his deputy, which is you. So did you, when you interviewed them, determine whether any of them were family members of any of the candidates?
Yep.
It's to the subject that we're discussing. We're not discussing the contents of the complaint. We're meant to be discussing having process.
Oh, so I'm sorry, I'm going to allow the question.
Of course you will.
Would you like to answer the question, please, Alana?
Can I just check through you, Mr. Mayor? Sorry, Dale, did you defer to the Deputy Electoral Officer in your answer?
No, I referred to the appointment process of my deputy, and that is applied to all councils throughout New Zealand. That I don't know my the council staff that I appoint as electoral officials. Therefore, I defer to my deputies to run that process on my behalf.
So in the case of the Kaipara District Council, I've asked you, were there any family members of candidates appointed as electoral officials? You said, I don't know.
I believe
because
not.
I
Yeah.
didn't-
This is such an abuse of power.
You're not going to
Jonathan
interject.
Larson is a candidate.
Please mute her. You said, put your hand up like everybody else, Councillor Paniora.
Bullying staff members
You too,
because
please.
you're in the running.
Dale, you said that you don't know whether there were any family members of candidates who acted as electoral officials because you didn't interview them, and that was carried out by the deputy electoral officer, which is why I'm asking the deputy electoral officer that whether they determined in those interviews whether or not any of the electoral officials were family members of candidates.
Simple question. Like to answer?
So did the deputy electoral officer in the Kaipara district election interview the appointed election officials and determine that none of them were family members of standing candidates? Now, the electoral officer has told me he doesn't know, so it kind of falls to the deputy electoral officer to answer the question. And so I'm asking again, Alana, did you interview the appointed election officials? And were any of them determined to be family members of candidates?
We do rely on elected officials to raise any conflicts of interest. So that is a process that is discussed with them. And we know that from our general interest PNC policy that we need to do that. So
Okay, and
do all the candidates, electoral officials.
You know who all the electoral officials were?
We have a number of electoral officials because we had such a large scale operation to run with the collection of the ballot boxes. So I didn't get to interview all of the electoral officials.
But are they all council staff members? And you know who they are?
Yes, we know who they are.
And is that confidential information, or is it possible to discover who those people are?
So Siri, I can take that answer actually, Alana. So we have received a request from the Mayor, actually, for the names of all electoral officials, and that was provided to the electoral officer, and the electoral officer declined to provide those names to the Mayor based on the fact that there are public safety issues and privacy issues in policing that.
So my next question, Dale, is the mobile voting unit that was stood up, was that your initiative?
It's a nationwide initiative. We are looking as a sector ways to engage with communities to increase voter participation. There are a number of initiatives right across the country, one of them being the orange vote boxes, which were first trialled in the Tauranga election very successfully, and they have been rolled out very successfully across the country for 2025. Another initiative.
Thank you, Dale. I don't need you to tell me all of the central government, LGNZ or Taituara initiatives. What I was asking you is, in the Kaipara district, was it your initiative as the electoral officer, or was it the deputy electoral officer's initiative to have mobile voting units? Who made the decision to do it?
It was through the sector, through the national organisation, that these are ways in which to encourage participation. And I've said vote boxes and mobile voting or mobile facilities is a mechanism to increase participation. And of course, that does fall under the requirement under the Local Government Act.
So are you suggesting that the local government sector, as a sort of a vague body of people, organised the mobile voting units in the Kaipara district?
No, of course not. But where the idea came from the national body, of which I'm a member of the electoral reference group, that this was a good way, a good mechanism to get out into the community to encourage and foster greater participation.
So you got the idea from the body. Who decided to do it in the Kaipara district area?
So I'll take that, Dale. So thank you for the question, Councillor Larson. As we've outlined before, the Chief Executive has statutory responsibilities to increase participation and engagement, as the electoral officer has outlined to you today. That idea about mobile voting has come through a national body. It is something that other councils are doing. And I took it as a responsibility under legislation as one of the options open to the Kaipara to do. And that is my responsibility, and that's what we have done.
So just to finalise that then, Dale, who selected the 21 locations that the mobile voting unit was set up in? Was that you, or was that the deputy electoral officer?
So that was, I'm going to take that, Dale. So that was the Chief Executive and our executive team approved those locations based on a number of factors which are outlined in the confidential agenda, and we selected those 21 locations.
Okay, so
in consultation and liaison with the electoral officers.
So who was responsible for the administration of the elections at the locations that the Chief Executive selected to have the mobile voting booths?
The electoral officials who were there.
The electoral official. Okay, so ultimately that falls to the electoral officer.
Correct. My electoral officials were designated or delegated that responsibility to be on those on duty, if you like, on those mobile voting locations.
And if I could add to that too, so let's not turn this into something that it's not. They collected sealed votes at the mobile location units. They helped people enroll to vote, increase participation, and they took special votes. And there are processes around all of that that are robust and strong, and those processes were met by the electoral officials.
Okay, thank you. So Dale, I'm sure you're very, very familiar with the local electoral regulations 2001, aren't you?
Correct.
And so if I draw your attention to section 73, which is persons may not remain in official places, which states that no person not actually engaged in voting may remain in an official place except the electoral officials and any of the scrutineers and as many contestables as the electoral official in charge thinks necessary to constables as the electoral official in charge thinks necessary to keep the peace. And at regulation 74, voters may not be spoken to in booths. Subject to regulation 34, and for an electoral official, no person may speak to or communicate in any way with any voter in a polling booth, either before or after the voter has voted. Are you satisfied as the electoral officer that these regulations were complied with at the 21 mobile voting unit locations?
Could I remind Councillor that under the Local Electoral Act, there are three ways to undertake an election. One is postal voting, one is booth voting, and one is a combination of both. Council has resolved, or by default has resolved, postal voting. They are quite different regulations for postal voting as for booth voting. What is being quoted, the heading is booth voting. We are not using booth voting. That's like parliamentary elections on the day. We are using postal voting. So there are quite different regulations and legislation that apply to each. So what was quoted is a heading of booth voting.
But at the mobile voting units, people able to fill out their voting papers without any undue influence from others at those locations.
As I said, it's postal voting and votes go out to electors at their normal residential address. How they fill it out, whether they have family members with them or not, is not my concern. It goes out to them and they are to vote as they feel appropriate. That is postal voting.
If someone at a mobile voting unit casts a special vote, do they then go home and send it back in the post, do they?
Many do, actually, yes.
And can they also hand it to the electoral officials at the mobile voting unit and fill it out there?
Yes, there's a mixed bag. There will be people that come along and they will apply for it and they'll take it home so that they can do their research. Others will go away and sit in their car and they will vote and then they'll come back to it and put it in the ballot box. Everyone is different.
Or fill it out at the table with the electoral officials and other bystanders?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that didn't occur. The team on the mobile voting stations had a separate place for them to go and vote if that's what they wanted to do. Then they sealed the vote and handed the sealed vote to the electoral official.
Good, thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, look, I'm going to finish with those. At this point now, I'm going to move into public excluded. I will move that motion. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Naya, thank you.
I have a question.
I've finished with questions. I'm sorry, we've had more than enough questions.
Regarding moving into public excluded, please, Mr.
It's a
Chairman.
motion. We get
What
to
was your
discuss
question
it.
about public excluded then? Ask me.
We also get statements.
Bear with. So where we are, okay, council, is there is a motion that wants to move you into public excluded. Now, a motion to move into public excluded is like any other motion that you receive.
It receives a vote.
So, but you bear with me. You can ask questions. It's question time. You can speak to that motion, and then you can vote on it. So I believe, Mr. Mayor, if you get a mover and a seconder, what we're doing is we have it on the table at that point, and then council are entitled to ask questions and then speak.
Okay, understood. All right. So I have a mover myself and a seconder, Ashnaya. And so then now we have questions, councillor Aaron Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the agenda document that you prepared, you provided a grounds for excluding the public, protect the privacy of natural persons and maintain the effective conduct of public affairs through the protection of such members, officers and persons. But what is the reason for it? So the ground for excluding what part section of the Goima are you referring to? What are your reasons for excluding the public?
They're in the pending orders, and they are relevant reasons for having publicly excluded meetings. So in this case, it's to protect the privacy of natural persons, including that of deceased natural persons, maintain the effective conduct of public affairs through the protection of such members, officers, employees and persons from improper pressure or harassment. And I think also I would say that there is issues of council's responsibility to be a good employer. Any further questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Councillor Paniora.
Thank you. So we've all of the councillors around the table have viewed the complaints, which I think have no substance and are vexatious, but kei te pai, what I want to know is the letter that we're supposed to be moving a motion on, that's to go to Department of Internal Affairs. That's the letter that's written by you, Mayor Jepson.
That's not a relevant question. We're discussing about whether we go into PECs. Have you a question?
Yes, so my question is, why is the letter that you have written, why does that need to protect you as a natural person when you're the complainant? You're the one writing the letter to the DIA and forwarding it, and you're attaching the complaints as evidence of your complaint. So what I want to know is, why are we not either separating the contents of the complainants and putting that into publicly excluded, but then why are we not debating your letter to the DIA in a public fashion, in an accountable and transparent manner?
Well, look, it's quite simple for me. I've called a meeting of the council.
It's not for you, sorry, it's for Jason to answer.
Public excluded has nothing to do with my protection. It has to do with other matters which I've put out.
But that's not, I'm asking for Jason to answer the question. Jason, can you give some advice, please?
Thank you.
I'll give it a go, Councillor Paniora. So the grounds for excluding the public provided by the Mayor was section 72A and 72F2.
I understand that.
Don't interject, please. I'll have him answer the question.
I would like him to answer specifically in relation to the letter that the Mayor has signed that is to go to the DIA. That's my specific question.
We're talking here about the publicly excluded item.
No, I don't. The question is, can we separate and discuss in public the cover letter that you've written, and then keep the complaint document itself in public excluded, because that names other individuals whose privacy needs to be protected?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so I understand the question now. Thank you, Councillor Wilson-Collins. There is nothing in the cover letter that is private in accordance with those obligations under the Goima to move into public excluded. I will clarify that the complaint itself does have and does name electoral officials and staff in that, and that is why there is a privacy aspect to this. So there are fair grounds to move into public excluded for the complaint itself. However, Councillor Pani was right, the cover letter, there's nothing publicly excluded or confidential about that, Mr. Mayor.
So can I just follow that question up? So we're specifically dealing with the Mayor and the council who want to send a letter to DIA. Now, this is something over and above what members of the public are ordinarily able to do.
What has this got to do with publicly excluded?
What it has to do with publicly excluded, Mayor, is that the actual letter the actual motion that we're going to determine in publicly excluded relates to a letter that you wrote, a cover letter that you wrote that you would like to be sent to DIA in our capacity as councillors. Now, that letter does not refer to any individuals or staff members, so there is no privacy or there is no, the provisions in the Act do not extend as far as the letter that you're suggesting, and there is no justification for trying to put that cover letter within the complaints that are private and then making the entire documentation publicly excluded when there's no justification for your letter that you're wanting the council to endorse to DIA to be publicly excluded. So my question is, can we separate the two matters and go into publicly excluded to discuss the veracity of the complaints and then keep your cover letter within the public arena for transparency?
Councillor Larson, you might be able to add to that.
I move that the motion be put.
Yeah.
I have
look,
a statement to make.
On that matter, I have no concern with making the letter that I've written public, so it doesn't worry me. So we'll discuss that during the PECs, by the way. So I've put the motion, got a seconder.
Just to clarify that
Councillor Vincent,
in the process,
in the process, we've been taking questions.
except that we haven't had all the questions and we haven't had opportunity to statements either.
I've just made a procedural motion that the motion be put.
Okay, so then we can vote on the procedural motion.
No, I haven't got a second on yet.
I've seconded the procedural motion. Councillor Williams. Okay. As chair, I accept that, so I'm going to put it to the vote.
No, we haven't had statements, sorry, and I'd like to make a
I'm
statement.
sorry, our procedural motion doesn't allow for it. and
No,
we-
it wasn't a procedural motion to start
We'll have
with.
a vote on the procedural motion.
Jason, point of order, points of order,
Executive, can you
Jason.
clarify this, please? Procedural motions in the.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So procedural motions are covered by 25.1 in the standing orders. A procedural motion to close or adjourn debate can be taken up to two speakers have spoken for the motion and two against.
Perfect.
Or,
Thank you.
or, in the chairperson's opinion, it is reasonable to accept the closure motion.
Which I'm accepting.
It's not reasonable. We should be entitled
That
to
might be
make a
your opinion.
statement.
Nothing to put, sweetheart.
I'm going to put that to the vote. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carried.
I'm
Against.
for going to
Division, please.
division. I would like to speak as well.
You're not speaking.
Why not?
You've had your opportunities to speak.
Well, I was,
This is a procedural motion. You are now not allowed
all
to
right,
speak.
okay.
I've had 3 years of this nonsense.
Listen, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, the nonsense, several years of nonsense, point of.
Okay, I withdraw this statement and apologise.
Several years of nonsense,
I-
but taking it.
Councillor Mayer, I just said I withdraw the statement and apologise. Now let's move on.
Thank you.
Maybe take a breath.
okay, so let me just take a minute here. So there's a closure motion on the table. Mr. Mayor, you moved it. I didn't know if we got a seconder for that.
Yes, we did, Councillor Williams.
So closure motion was Councillor Larson, seconded by Councillor Williams. Thank you very much. I believe there was a call for a division.
Yes, I did.
So, Mr. Mayor, I suggest, and just to be clear, you are doing a division vote on the closure motion. So this is about the closure motion itself.
I haven't had a chance to ask questions or make a statement on this matter.
I understand that, Councillor Vincent, but understanding orders the Mayor has question here.
So
I'm gonna-
process.
I'm going to ask the governance advisor to call the division on the closure motion.
Unbelievable.
Councillor Howard.
Get this out of the way.
Can we stop right now, please? Sorry, Lana. I don't need to, just based on comment from Councillor Nair just now, I do need to be clear what a closure motion is, okay? So the closure motion has been that the matter be put, okay? So basically what you're agreeing, weirdly now, is to agree to put the matter. But you have to vote on that first before we can actually put the matter.
We're going to have 2 votes here, one to close and then one to go into public excluded.
Correct. So sorry, Alana,
The division,
yes, would you mind starting again?
Councillor Howard.
Yes. Get it out of the way.
Councillor Lambert, can you hear?
Yes, 4 and 4.
Correct.
Camille Larson.
Or
Councillor
Against?
Councillor Paniora.
Against.
Councillor Vincent.
Against?
Councillor Williams. Councillor Wilson Collins.
Against.
Mayor Jepson.
4. The 4s have it. Okay. Now, we have a vote regarding going into publicly excluded. All those in favour raise their hand and say aye. Aye. Those
Against.
Against,
Division.
Okay, we'll do by division again.
Councillor Howard.
Oh,
Councillor Lambert.
4.
Deputy Mayor Larson.
4.
Councillor Nairn.
against,
Councillor Kaniora.
Against.
Councillor Vincent.
Against.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Wilson Collins.
Against.
Mayor Jepson.
4. Okay, the 4s have it. I'm going to have a brief adjournment while we clear the room.
Ladies and gentlemen, so the council has just moved to public excluded and adjourning. May I please ask you to depart? Thank you for your attendance today. It's great to see the community.
Thank you all for coming today.
Members online.